We've said a couple of times that this has been the hardest chapter of our marriage.
Ooh, I hate having to compromise, but it's kind of what we need to do. Let's touch each other.
You really can't describe how seismic of a shift it is going from 2 to 3. Hey team, today we thought we would do something a little different and talk to you about what our experience has been like becoming parents. I know a lot of our content is centered around the trailer build, but obviously it excludes a huge chunk of our life, which has been Frankie and our chapter together with him. So if this is not what you're interested in checking out, maybe the next video will be more up your alley if you want more trailer content. But today we're going to talk about the last 5 months. So the first question that I thought would be interesting to start off with is, how did you know that you were ready to have a kid?
I'll be honest, I've known that I've wanted to have a kid for most of my life. I was really reminded of that when some of my friends from high school, heard that I was pregnant, had met Frankie, and they're like, dude, you've been talking about wanting this since we were like in grade 10. I did some deep work of like, is that actually what I want? Or is that just society telling me that's what I need to do as a woman? Yada, yada. But it's amazing. Not to say there definitely haven't been lots of challenges, but being pregnant and now being a mom, it's the best. It's totally the best.
I would say that my path here was not nearly as clear-cut as Leah's. The trip that we went on before Frankie was born was kind of like my final hurrah of selfishness, if you want to call it that. Like, I wanted to do something that was just for me, that was just for us, and that trip was kind of a solidifying thing for me. I think we had a number of conversations before that point, agreeing that if we got pregnant at any point, it was fine. Like, we knew that we were the people that we were going to have children with, and it wasn't that we were unprepared or not ready for it. It's just that we had a few other things that we wanted to tick off of our lists before we changed our life forever.
And I'm so glad we did, because you can never foresee how much everything in your life is going to change. And Levi and I have been together almost 10 years, and 9 of those years it was... Whoa.
I think it's perfect that we're like trying to do this with Frankie here, like eating his hands ferociously the whole time.
He might. Do you want to actually eat, buddy? Is that part of... Yeah, I think...
Here we go.
Potentially this dude just wants to eat.
To round out this question, though, I think it is extremely important to say that we have a lot of privilege, and we are super fortunate to have found another person who was on the same page about the subject of having kids together. If you're not in a financial situation or a familial situation where we're just super lucky to have a family and the finances to make this work at this particular time in our life.
I also think that there's so many like movies and stuff where people like get married or in long-term committed relationships, and then they have a conversation about whether or not they want to have kids. It's like, why didn't you talk about this earlier? Like, you've already made this huge commitment to each other, and now you're finding out that one of you wants to have kids and the other one doesn't. That seems bonkers to me.
Yeah.
So you kind of want everyone on board to have a pretty strong hell yes, because it's going to challenge everything.
So starting off light, are there any choices where you have given up sustainability for convenience? All right, so right off the top, I would say that our lives are more wasteful and more consumptive because we have a baby. I mean, he's just literally another person. There's just 3 of us. We consume more stuff. But I think we've actually been surprised at how manageable from a waste perspective he's been.
I also think that is a like modern capitalist way to have children though, right? Like people have children around the world to this day, and it's not a super wasteful experience. But for us, there's been a few things that have actually been easier than expected, and some that were like, ooh, I hate having to compromise, but it's kind of what we need to do.
Diapers being the big elephant in the room, of course. We use reusable diapers for the most part. We went through a phase where he had diaper rash. We weren't able to use reusables. But now we're mostly reusables, except for sometimes at night, just to make sure that he doesn't have a lot of moisture in his undercarriage over the course of the evening. But that has actually not been as hard as we thought it was going to be.
No, I think the reusable diapers thing, I think a lot of people get scared thinking about it. And I remember messaging a friend who that's all that they use.
Yeah.
And she's like, actually, once you get into the rhythm of it, it's not that daunting.
No.
Right? And I think a big part of that is Levi and I both work from home. So it's never just on one person or the other to clean the diapers, put them in the wash, everything else. Like, we're a team and we make sure that happens. If I was doing this on my own, I think I would still want to do it, but it definitely would be harder.
In terms of stuff, it is absolutely baffling how many things, products, services, toys, gadgets, you can name it, it exists for parents. Like, you are the most vulnerable that you've ever been because, as we're going to talk about, you're tired, you're exhausted, and your whole life's just been flipped upside down.
And you want what's best for your kid,
yeah.
right? And all of this marketing is like, well, don't you want to be a good parent? Don't you want the best, the safest, the whichever for your kid? But I will say that everything that you would need for parenting for a baby, Facebook Marketplace has it. There are people buying stuff all the time, realizing they don't need it, and then selling it for like really cheap. It's been amazing, the stuff that we found, like maternity clothing, his crib, his change table, like
almost everything.
His reusable diapers. It's
almost everything that we have bought for this kid has come off of Facebook Marketplace and will sell on Facebook Marketplace. It has become weirdly, inadvertently, one of the most kind of cyclical and incredible places for people to buy and sell and reuse things over and over. Because I think there's also an understanding within the parenting world that we're all scrambling to try and figure this out. And if you got a crib or a baby chair or something for a good deal on Facebook Marketplace, you're going to sell it for a good deal on Facebook Marketplace because you were in that position where you needed it and now somebody else needs it. And it doesn't matter because it's $25 or $40 or whatever.
Yeah. I will say, though, that there are also a lot of organizations like here in Nanaimo, and I think they're across BC. It's called Mamas for Mamas. It's a Facebook group, and they just post things for free.
Yeah.
So there's lots of parenting Facebook groups where you don't sell things, people just exchange them, and it's like a bartering thing. And I think that's really nice, too, because then you don't have to spend your money on all of these things because kids are expensive.
We got some version of this question, probably more than all of them combined, which was, what is the hardest part about being a parent or becoming a parent? I would say that the thing that we found the most challenging is finding time for each other, like maintaining our relationship to each other in the midst of raising Frankie.
Yeah. I feel like there's quite often times where most of our conversations are, I'm changing him, can you do this? Or I'm about to go to the laundry, can you do this thing? Which is great, because you and I are a really good team. Like, we know that. We know we travel well together, we live well together. And now I think we're parenting really well together. But it's easy to just feel like you're parents and you're not, spouses, you're not lovers, you're not friends, right? Like, all of these other things that are really integral to the foundation. Wow.
It's tough to totally reorient your relationship around a baby when previously this thing that is now the center of your entire life just wasn't there. Like, you really can't describe how seismic of a shift it is going from 2 to 3.
One thing that Levi's parents like to say is there's a bigger jump from 0 to 1 than there is from 1 to 10. And for them, it's like when you go from not being parents to parents, it's a huge, huge shift.
Yep.
And not to say like folks who have multiple kids, absolutely. There's layers of complexity and chaos. But an analogy that I've heard is when you give birth to a baby, you're also giving birth to a parent, right? Like you're giving birth to like this thing that you've never done. You can kind of prepare for, but you don't really know. And as someone who academically has always done very well and likes to prepare for tests and exams and things like that. It's hard because you just want to feel like you're doing it to the best of your ability, but you don't know what the job entails.
And we still kind of don't.
No, right? Every day we're learning new things about how to care for him. Yeah.
Another thing that has been hard is just how different our experiences are. Leah is the primary caregiver, and I am a super woke new age dad. Like, I'm in there changing diapers, I'm helping him get to sleep, I'm doing all the stuff, but the reality is I am just not his mom, and that just means that there is so much more pressure and so much energy that is needed from Leah, and that means
Hi. I know you're a little you're so wiggly right now.
You want to talk about personal space and being touched out?
No, that your hand has grabbed my shirt, and that's not gonna feed you.
I guess maybe we should go for a walk or something.
Yeah. Hey.
All right. Well, guys, I think we're gonna have to start shooting this again in just a minute. All right, team. Well, we have fed the kiddo, and now he's gonna get changed. Leah, the experience of being touched out, which I think a concept that maybe not everybody understands, and the feeling that you need personal space. Okay, let's we're gonna pause again, folks. All right, team. It's the next day. We've hopefully got a slightly more calm Frankie.
Yeah, he was a little screamy. That was actually kind of perfect, though. What a great illustration of just, you have to be willing to adapt and change. There's also construction happening right now.
Yeah, you might hear some construction noises in the background. Please be patient and thank you.
This is our life.
You feel touched out.
It's funny, I'm usually quite a touchy-feely kind of person, and that's a lot of how like Levi and I communicate our care for each other. But with Frankie, he literally needs to be touching me a lot. Like, it's really important for his development, for him to eat, for his safety, everything.
And that affects us too, because whether you like it or not, you are getting your touch from him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's amazing because, oh my gosh, look at these cheeks. You don't want to kiss them always. Like, they're perfect. But then it's just hard. It's like Levi, will try and like hug me and things like that, which is really nice. But I feel like so much of our touch now
is in the service of, making sure that you feel good, or
yeah,
what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say a lot of it's like I'll touch your arm and be like, hey, do you mind switching over the laundry, or do you mind doing something else? And it's just making sure that we're trading off tasks. But I think we've made a real effort to reconnect, because that's been one of the real challenges, right? Is our connection.
One of the hardest parts of having a kid is definitely the beginning. Like, our first 1 through 6 weeks was the most intense. And I remember distinctly at like the 7-week mark saying to Leah,
sorry, he was grabbing my hair.
I remember saying to Leah, I think I just realized what happened to us 6 weeks ago. And that's because that first chapter of having a baby is so intense. It's so exhausting. You're so tired. And it's all so new that you have no way of processing what's happening, because you're just surviving. And now we're at the 5-month mark, and honestly, things are starting to shift in a pretty fun way. Like, he has now developed the ability to recognize who we are as separate people. He's giggling, he's laughing, he's grabbing onto our shirts, he's playing with toys. Like, he's becoming a little person. And especially for me as the non-birthing parent, as the dad in this situation who didn't have the experience of birthing him, it means a lot. Like, this is big for me because now I feel like I have a connection to him and we're developing something, and that's I can't really articulate how important that is, because previous to this moment it sort of felt like I was just alone in this whole process.
I think what's hard is that, you know, again, like, I gave birth to him. So it's like, yeah, this is obviously my kid. And there's a lot of things that I didn't know and I had to learn. But there is some instinct that kicks in. You know, like, if you are pregnant and give birth to a baby, I literally develop new gray matter in my brain to recognize his cries and what he needs and everything else. And, you know, if you're lucky enough to be doing this with a partner or other partners, like, they don't get that same thing.
No. You may also be lucky enough to have this experience while living with your parents or your in-laws, in my case. We've been living with Leah's parents this whole time, as many of you know, and that has come with its challenges as well as its benefits. Honestly, there has been a number of times where being able to hand him off just so that Leah and I can go and, you know, have a quick shower or even just have a moment together has meant a huge amount.
What? Hey, Mr. Smooth. Yeah, there we go.
What is that thing sticking up between my legs? That looks really rude.
At the same time, I think one of the biggest challenges for us has been not having our own space, not feeling like we really know how we would be parents because we are being parents in Leah's parents' house.
So yeah, it's been a real gift to be with my parents, but at the same time, we're so looking forward to that next step of being back in our own home, because when Frankie is napping or doing other things, that's time where it's just Levi and I. Like, we're cooking the things we normally cook. We're surrounded by our things. You know, we can set up a more permanent room for him. And I think that's been kind of the hard thing, is we felt a little transient when everything else in our life is kind of up in the air. Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like the thing that I want to highlight as well is I've also never experienced so much, like, joy in my life. A lot of ups and downs, my mental health and postpartum, we'll get into that, but so much joy as well, though, in seeing, you know, your partner and your baby, like, to see the two of them fall in love with each other, to just see my parents and how excited they are, and then to realize your own capacity as a parent has been such a gift. Another question that a lot of you wanted to know about was, how was postpartum and how is sleeping, or lack thereof?
Honestly, for me, I would say that I was surprised at how okay it is for me as the person who's not waking up with him every single hour. I mean, I wake up more times in the night than I did before I had a kid, but it is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But how has it been for you?
I think now it's easier, and so a lot of people have feelings about sleeping in a crib versus co-sleeping and whatever. You know, you're all gonna do it the way that you're gonna do it. So we co-sleep with Frankie. He does have a crib that he sleeps in for a few hours every night, if we're lucky. But I don't think I realized the relentless tiredness of it, right? Like, I like to think of myself as a very patient person. I give people a lot of grace, a lot of understanding. And when you have been sleep deprived for months, I just don't have that same patience and grace. I have it for Frankie, and I don't have as much for anyone else.
What is a personal growth moment that you did not expect? There's been so many moments that we didn't expect, and something for me personally was the role of becoming a caregiver. I think that for a lot of my life, I've been taught that I am supposed to kind of take care of myself. The nurturing instinct is not something that I kind of knew I had. And over basically since Leah was pregnant, I have really had to learn how to expect what she needs and be a supportive person and a supportive partner in a bunch of different ways. And that's something that that's like a whole side of me that now occupies like a huge chunk of my day-to-day life that I previously never did and never knew I had. And it's great.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It's nice to have people need you. For me, it's funny, like, I feel like that, like, mom guilt, self-doubt thing is like, I don't know, personal growth, but I don't know. I think as a mom, I'm killing it. Like, I gotta be honest, like, I'm tired. I feel like the hard thing is all of my other relationships have suffered. Like I just don't have as much time or capacity for them. But I also know that that's temporary, that this too shall pass, right? That we will have more time for those relationships. And right now, this is the most important time with him. And so even though I have some guilt of like, oh, I should be out doing this or getting coffee with this person or, being more involved in some ways, I don't know. I feel like I'm also doing the right thing by just pouring my energy into Frankie because that's what he needs right now.
How do you fit your life around the baby?
It's Frankie's world. We just live in it, Like we.
It is kind of like that, and the 5-month mark has really helped us in this regard. I think the more that he becomes his own little being, the more that he sleeps on his own, the more that he is not needing Leah for every single minute of every single day, the more that we're able to live our lives again in some ways, which has made a huge difference.
I think there's little things that also help. Like at the beginning, Levi would take Frankie for an hour or two in the morning and I would sleep in. But then sometimes I'm not getting up until like 10 o'clock and everyone else has already had breakfast and gone for a walk and done everything else. And so I ended up just feeling more and more isolated, right? Because every time we'd sit down for a meal, Frankie would be hungry. So I would be sitting in a chair by myself while everyone else was at the dinner table. And so what we've done, and we've changed it, is that every morning we do our morning routine. Like before we had Frankie, that was one of the most sacred things that Levi and I had with each other. We always have breakfast with each other. We go for a walk, talk about what's going to happen in our day. And now we just do that with Frankie. And it's so nice. And one of those small things of like, we get up together and Levi always makes breakfast. It's just like unspoken, Levi makes breakfast. And it's so nice because then Frankie and I get up, I change him, we get ready, and Levi's already on it. The tea is made, whatever we're going to have for breakfast. Just small things like that where we feel like ourselves. Like this is what we would have done pre-Frankie, and now we're bringing him into something that I think really helps regulate us, calm us, set us up to have a good day. Yeah. If we can instill those kind of routines with him now, and he loves it. We go for that walk every morning, and he used to sleep the whole time, but half of the time he's just breathing fresh air and looking at trees and
And squawking.
He's squawking at all the passerbys.
I remember the first time that like he fell asleep in his crib and we were sitting there, and it was like the first time in months that we had like looked at each other without him there, and we were like, hi.
I love you. Yeah. Let's touch each other.
Yeah, it was true.
Yeah. I think what's been really challenging but also really amazing is that it changes every single day. So as soon as you're like, okay, this is our routine, we got this, he's evolving and changing. And so it's kind of nice to know that there are things of our life that we're going to slowly piece back in and create as part of our routine. And the more and more, like, he's our adventure buddy. We've already taken him on some wonderful adventures, and he's been so down, like, so chill. And we're like, okay, cool. Like, we want that to be a part of his life, that we want him to feel grounded, but also have that sense of adventure and freedom because we are his home, right?
Yeah.
We're his safe space that he can explore from.
We've said a couple of times that this has been the hardest chapter of our marriage, by far, without a doubt. Our entire relationship, we've traveled through India, China, Southeast Asia. We lived out of a Prius for a year. We've lived with our in-laws. We've done pretty much everything that you can do as a couple, and this was way harder, and it still is way harder. And
Yeah.
I think that that's something that we've also learned is just the depth that we have as a couple, and that we're still working on. Like every day we are learning and we're growing, and that's like reassuring. It's really hard, and I don't know, you know, there's been days where it was like, holy cow, like where do we go from here? Like where does this land us?
Yeah.
But it's been amazing, and I think that it's gonna be a really good process.
Yeah. Whoa. Ooh, big stretches. See if he wants to play with his toes or something too.
What is the most surprising part about becoming a parent? I think probably one of the most surprising parts of this whole experience is that everybody does this. like not everybody, of course, but like billions of people around the world have children and have had children. And that is just mind-boggling to me, because this is one of the most life-altering things that we've ever done, and it's changed almost everything in our lives, and yet everybody does this.
I am also struck by how much work my parents did. Like, I was looking at my mom, I'm like, you did that for me? Like, you fed me and bathed me and changed me and played with me, and like you did all those things, and I'm the youngest of 3. She's like, yeah. I'm like, holy shit, you must love me. Like, a lot, because I loved it. And don't get me wrong, I love my parents, but once you have a kid, you're like, oh, my parents love me.
Yeah, you appreciate and understand so many things in the world because of the way that you feel about your kid. And the most amazing thing is that this is just the beginning, quite literally. Still, we have so many more experiences and moments of growth to come, and it's all thanks to this little guy. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and a little look into our lives raising Frankie. Next episodes are going to be a lot more trailer focused. So thanks for tuning into this one, and we'll see you around for all of the next episodes to come.
If you want to get really jacked arms, just have a baby. You know, just have a baby who wants to be lifted.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Frankie, say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Good work.